Hello and welcome everybody to the Humber Literary Review's virtual launch. This is our spring-summer issue. It's volume 8, issue 1, and we're really pleased to present this to you with all our contributors online. My name is Euphemia Fantetti, and I am a co-editor of the Humber Literary Review with this fine group of folks that are going to be introducing themselves to you.
Hi, I'm Christian. I'm the art and comics editor.
I'm Leanne. I'm the essays editor.
Hello, I'm Matthew. I'm one of the fiction editors.
Hi, my name is Neil Price, and I'm the reviews editor.
Hi, I'm Sarah Feldblum, and I'm the other fiction editor.
Hi, everyone. My name is D.D. Miller, or Dave Miller, and I am the co-editor of the Humber Literary Review. The Humber Literary Review, or the HLR, is published out of Humber College's North Campus, which is located within the traditional and treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit. Known as Adubaguk, or the place of the Black Alders in Michisauging Anishinaabe, the region is uniquely situated along the Humber River watershed, which historically provided an integral connection for Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat peoples between the Ontario Lakeshore and Lake Simcoe, Georgian Bay regions. Now home to numerous people from numerous nations, Adubaguk continues to provide a vital source of interconnection for all. Now, if you've ever been at an HLR launch in the past, you know that we believe strongly that a land acknowledgement should just be an acknowledgement of responsibility. It should just be a first step. So we like to take things a little bit farther here. We have featured some incredible Indigenous writers over the years, including Billy Rob Belcourt and Cherie Dimeline, just to name a few, but we also acknowledge that it's important to do more. That's why last year we began to use the late Gregory Junging's Elements of Indigenous Style, which I'm holding here, as one of the 2 style guides, along with the Chicago Manual of Style, that helps govern the writing and the way we speak about and talk about writers writing about Indigenous issues and Indigenous writers themselves. So we would like to strongly encourage other literary journals and publishers to also adopt the elements of Indigenous style, and hopefully we can help make this guide a staple in the publishing community. Miigwech, thank you.
In this issue, we're going to be presenting the winners and honorable mentions for our 3rd biennial Emerging Writers Fiction Contest, which is very special because it offers us the opportunity to connect with a groundswell of new, exciting voices.
Yeah, and as Sarah mentioned, it is very exciting, and we get to read a lot of writers who are in the early stages of their careers, who are trying out lots of different things with their writing. They're not just sticking with the old forms, and so we're getting to see people doing lots of interesting and new things. And personally, I was very excited that we got Wabashig Rice as our judge for the fiction contest, because I've just finished reading his book, The Moon of the Crescent Snow, and it was very thrilling. So it was exciting to have him choose the writers for our fiction contest.
Yeah, I just want to echo Matthew's statement that we were really excited when Rob Rice agreed to collaborate with us on this writing contest. He brought an extraordinary enthusiasm and generosity to his role as the judge of the contest this year, and we are incredibly grateful for that. For those of you out there who don't know who Rob Rice is, I just want to take a moment to introduce this excellent writer to you. Wabashig Rice is an author and journalist originally from Wasauksing First Nation. His first short story collection, Midnight Sweat Lodge, was inspired by his experiences growing up in an Anishinaabe community and won an Independent Publishers Book Award in 2012. His debut novel, Legacy, followed in 2014, with a French translation following in 2017. His latest novel, that Matthew mentioned, Moon of the Crusted Snow, was released in October 2018, and a sequel, which we're all very excited about, has recently been commissioned by Random House Canada. Wab got his first taste of journalism in 1996 as an exchange student in Germany, writing articles about being an Anishinaabe teen living in a foreign language for Canadian newspapers. He graduated from Ryerson University's journalism program in 2002, and he's worked in a variety of news media since, most notably reporting for CBC News for the bulk of his career. And he recently wrapped up hosting duties on Up North, CBC Radio's afternoon show for Northern Ontario. In 2014, he received an Anishinaabe Nation's Debwewin Citation for Excellence in First Nation Storytelling. But despite all of those great accomplishments, his proudest role are as dad to Jikwis and husband to Sarah. The family splits its time between Sudbury and Wasauksing.
So additionally, I think the issue is really exciting visually. I'd just like to introduce you to the works that we're featuring in this issue. Our visual artist is Joan Butterfield, and Joan is a renowned artist, scholar, curator, and mentor for Black artists. During her impressive career, she's worked in many different mediums and styles. The selections in this issue, while grounded in photography, also feature digital manipulation. Her techniques, including hallucinatory and celebratory bright colors, interrogate and play with the idea of how Black experience is represented. These images dissolve the binary between subject-object, traditional modern, and life and art to present striking, powerful, and proud images of Black identity and culture. Our comic is by Elena Scarina, and Kidney Beans presents the story of an astronaut's encounter with life forms on another planet, and like all good speculative fiction, provides insight into our current situation. Elena uses emotive, round lines, and her pages are beautifully alive, teeming with strange and lovely flora and fauna and heart motifs. Ultimately, this comic foregrounds a story of respect and empathy and shows how life, diversity, and hope can flower even amid an apocalyptic background.
Our poetry editor, Bardia, put together a fantastic selection of poets for us with this issue, including Eva H.D., Zoe Amani-Sharp, James Pollock, Jennifer Lovegrove, and we're also really happy in this issue to have partnered with Inkwell Workshops to feature poems from the writer George Zangola. Inkwell Workshops is a writing community for people living with mental health or addiction issues, and right now they're offering online creative writing workshops in conjunction with the Royal Ontario Museum called Wrong Rights. This is a group that's very near and dear to my heart, so please check them out and give them some support at inkwellworkshops.com.
And I'm so excited to share the distinct voices of this issue's two essayists, Mark Anthony Jarman and Brittany Birch. In his essay, Mark meditates on the life and death of his dear friend, a cowboy named Bill. The piece carried me away into a haunting world the very first time I read it, with its searing lines orchestrated into a rhythmic cadence. I'm also thrilled to introduce Brittany in her first publication. She has an intimate, authentic voice all her own. In her essay, she writes about bullying and body image from a place of humor tinged with darkness. Her writing instantly grabbed me and just would not let go. It's a dream to publish these two essayists together, one emerging and the other already well into an illustrious career.
In terms of reviews in this issue, very excited to have contributions from Nahal El-Hadi, who's a well-established writer and has reviewed Kanisa Lubrin's very exciting new poem called The Dysgraphist. So very excited to have a review. We also have Shazia Hafiz Ramji reviewing Dion Brand's An Autobiography of the Autobiography of Reading. We also have Sohini Bachara writing a review on Samra Zafar, A Good Wife, Escaping the Life I Never Chose. And then we also have a review on Becky Blake's Proof I Was Here, which I've contributed.
With this issue, we had a student from Humber's Professional Writing and Communications Graduate Certificate Program contribute something. So Michaela Powers completed an interview with author Nancy Jo Cullen, and several graduates from that program currently contribute to HLR and copy editing roles. We're really excited about this new endeavor, offering real-world experience and a publication credit to students in the program. So for anyone who's interested in the PwC postgraduate year-long program, you can find out more about that online. Megan Strymus is the program coordinator who oversees that program, and she's also a former editor at HLR who's come back to us as interviews editor The interview subject was Nancy Jo Cullen, who's a fantastic writer. It was about her most recent book, The Western Alienation Marriage Badge, out through Walsick and Wynn. Afra, about Afra Bain, the playwright, the ones that I have, because I'm a fan. This probably doesn't need to be said, but that's a particular talent of mine, is stating the obvious, because the arts sustain us, sustain the hope of our human spirit, and contain a record of all our stories, the books, the movies, the paintings, and so much more. So support your indie publishers. I think that's the last thing I really want to say. If anyone else has something to say before we direct you all to these fabulous readings coming up from our contributors for this issue.
Bonjour, hello. My name is Wabgisha Kreis. I'm a Sudbury-based author, originally from Wissahickon First Nation. It has been a very strange spring here in Northern Ontario and beyond, as we all continue to be locked down of sorts during the pandemic, but we are all finding community, I think, through our love of the written word, and that's why I am bringing you this message today. I had the great fortune of being the judge of this year's Humber Literary Review Emerging Writers Contest, and it was a truly enjoyable and memorable experience. I greatly appreciated and admired all of the entries, and it was very difficult to place them and figure out the runners-up and leave a few out of that mix. You know, the old cliche is that you want all the entries to be the winners, but unfortunately that's just not possible every single time. But I did take a long time trying to figure out how the stories would place. But at the end of the day, I was really inspired by each of the stories. I thought they reflected some strong voices, some important perspectives, and really the diversity of this land. You know, that vibrancy really shone through in each of the entries. And it was a great honor for me to read these stories and to spend some time with them. So I would encourage all the entrants to keep writing. Please keep sharing your important voice and keep crafting your very compelling stories. I really look forward to reading what comes in the future. And in the meantime, just chimigwech. I am very thankful and honored that you shared your stories with me. And big thanks to HLR for this opportunity to judge the contest. I hope you all have a good remainder of 2020, and we will all emerge from this in a better place, I believe, with a stronger sense of community and a strong direction forward for the future of our children. Okay, chimigwech.
Hello, I'm Pamela Dillon, and I'm going to be reading from my story, Harvest. The sun tipped gently toward the horizon in a melange of orange and red. Milton fingered the handkerchief in his pocket as he walked. His thoughts turned, first of Ronnie above him, the weight of him over his hips, then of the feel of his teeth against his neck. Milton quivered in remembrance. He daydreamt he'd rolled onto his back, his arms up in surrender, then dared to imagine he'd pulled Ronnie down to his mouth. Milton stopped in the middle of the road until the high, sharp calls of a starling broke his reverie. This road had a long history. Milton's father, Leonard, once told him an ornithology research team from the university came down this same road more than a decade ago, and they'd placed wooden posts in regular intervals along the edge of the field. To each post, they'd attached a small angled box and painted 3 numbers in dark green paint on the side. Each one was alike in height and dimension, a nesting box with one small circular opening in the front. They were looking for bluebirds, Leonard said. Likely checking the populations. For a while, someone must have come to record the information, then they stopped. Seemed one day the bluebirds just up and flew away. Starlings used the nest boxes instead. Summer after summer, they built nests in the numbered boxes, laid 5 or 6 small turquoise eggs, and hatched chicks that no one gave a damn about counting. Milton waded through the long grass in the ditch and stopped at the first post. He tapped the top of the nesting box, numbered 113. He cocked his ear close to the opening, waited, then whistled softly. He lifted the wood top and peeked inside. The bottom was lined with dried grasses and mud, and there were downy bits of fluff, but the nest was empty. Milton pressed the damp handkerchief against his nose and inhaled deeply. It smelled of Ronnie, like something raw and broken open. It was intoxicating, organic. He carefully set the wadded cloth on the hollow nest, then he shut the top slowly, thinking next time he'd show Ronnie his secret. The wind picked up. The wheat stirred wildly, hypnotically, making a pleasant clicking sound. Milton climbed up the ditch, turned around, and searched for the place where they'd lain. He could just make out the dark, flattened space that interrupted the perfect rows. Reassured, he memorized the spot, their spot. He took off running for home, carrying a bright hopefulness, a buoyant lightness in his steps that wasn't there in the morning.
My name's Jennifer Lovegrove, and I'm going to be reading one part of my three-part poem about grapefruit that's in the issue. So the poem is a sonnet triptych, and it's from my current manuscript called The Tinder Sonnets. And the Tinder Sonnets is pretty much about what you would assume. So this is probably a good time if you have anyone like under 18 in the room to maybe usher them out or cover their ears. It's up to you. But yeah, it's a little dirty. Citrus grandis, lycopene flush, grapefruit diet, a sonnet. M would tell me what to do on other dates, requested photos, evidence, first in a clanging chain of DOMs, the only child of Citrus sinensis and Citrus maxima. If I obeyed, he would do whatever. Broadview rooftop, palomas, June walls dissolve all jaune. No, wait, so jeune. Mer Captain, Captain Shattuck, serrated spoon. A decade since I'd fucked anyone new. Black dress, Lou Reed, lilac heels, so cliche. Weeks of texts before we met, covenant. M's Belgian mother, real-life Scrabble champ. Listen, sometimes the antidepressants mean I can't get hard. It's not you, okay? And if you want to read the second part and the third part, all three parts, I recommend reading all three parts together. The whole thing is online in the new issue of the Humber Literary Review. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the readings.
Hi, I'm James Pollock. I'll be reading 3 poems about things found around the house. They're part of a collection called Durable Goods. Mirror. Only the precise truth in every part. Look again. Words are spelled backward, and letters reversed. Right and left have changed places. Art, or let us say realism, fetters itself to reality in vain. No gate to some other world. A perfect lie, not least because it frames what we can know and seems to tell the truth. The thing is, why? Faucet. This poet will convey the subtlest grades of feeling, from iciness to scalding or steamy fervency, and all the shades of warmth and lukewarmth in between, blending intensity from the slow drip of tears, from joyous gushing, from the spluttering and gasping when the water disappears. The truest poem is the most pretending. Coffee grinder. Like a power tool or an artisan, it does one perfect thing. You rattle your half cup of beans into the Epicurean hopper and turn it on. It starts to roar and grind, harsh as a tree chipper, and when most of that modicum has been ground up, the pitch rises like a tornado siren, and one last hard seed begins to reel and twitch around the inverted cone, trying not to get crushed in the whirling burrs. Turn it off, and there's a disappointed whine, sad thought of loss, ending in a gravelly cough. Reach down and snap out the fragrant chamber, full to the brim of what will soon be drinking, and measure out some coarse grains of burnt umber, mixed with brown madder grounds that smell like thinking.
Hello, my name is Nina, and I will be reading from the short story Bodies. Allie found it difficult to fall back asleep. He was still painfully cold under the blanket, though he curled his legs up closer to his body. After a while, he could sense that it was close to the time he would be getting up anyway. He got out of bed and took a shower. They lived in one of those older buildings that had small windows in the bathrooms. It seemed odd from the outside, all these tiny windows going up along the edge of the building where the bathrooms were, but in fact he loved it. Early in the morning, the bright blue air, or lazy and late in the summer, the golden light. It made him take long showers, longer than he needed to. He left the lights off and used only the early daylight in the small bathroom. He went to the kitchen, where his mother was making a tea for herself. He didn't know what to say to her about getting the rice and seeing something in the park. He stood next to her and started frying up some bread while she was stirring her tea and putting away things in the cupboard. She sat at the table and Allie followed her. It was quiet for a few moments. His mother was not a woman who spoke often. And then Allie cleared his throat and said, "I think there was a body, a man, lying in the park this morning." She looked at him sharply. "In the park? How do you know?" "I was helping Dad get bags from the car. He woke me up, maybe an hour ago." She blinked a few times, trying to put it together. Then her eyes and mouth became hard and angry, which Allie did not understand. She had many emotions, although she was quiet, but she was not usually quick to anger. "Don't walk past there to school," she said briskly. "He's probably just sleeping it off." Then she drank from her tea. "It's drugs, you know," she said, with anger in her voice. She was almost accusing him. "Drugs." Thank you very much.
My name is Jan Everard, and I'm delighted to be here for the Humber Literary Review virtual launch. I'm reading to you from Victoria, British Columbia, and my story is called Memento Mori. When Lee described what happened, she said the sound of the bird striking the window was like a clap of thunder, and she leaped off the couch in alarm. She didn't say the sound was like gunshot, because she'd never heard real gunshot and couldn't be sure how it sounded. She had heard shots on TV, but there were many things on TV that couldn't be trusted, and she was trying to be honest. By then, she'd concluded honesty was something she should cling to. And because she was trying to be honest, she explained why she'd been lying on the sofa when the bird struck. She'd just returned from the hospital, where she'd expected to pick up her mother, whose infection had healed. Instead, she found her mum curled into a tight coma, unable to speak or move her limbs. "Yeah, I think she had a stroke," said the nurse Lee found down the hall when she went searching for help. Despite Lee's plea that the nurse call a doctor immediately, the nurse appeared in no hurry. It wasn't the first bird to hit the window, which was high up in the room near the cathedral ceiling, too high to reach even by ladder. Each time a bird smacked into it, Lee planned to attach stickers shaped like owls or raptors, meant to deter birds from flying into the glass. But then she forgot about the stickers until the next time she heard a crash. She dreaded stepping outside, knowing she would find the bird in the driveway, either dead already or worse, stunned, broken, and in the throes of death. She waited an hour, knowing she didn't have it in her to put the creature out of its misery, hoping that an hour was enough for it to either gather itself and fly away or expire. She was imaginative enough that in that hour she contemplated how someone with more compassion or fortitude might end the bird's life mercifully. But the thought of holding it under water in a bucket or braining it with a loose brick made bile rise in her throat. This was the reason she'd never owned a cat or dog. Inevitably, it would come to the point where the animal would have to be euthanized. Euthanizing a creature in pain was what responsible pet owners did. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Brittany Birch, and I'm going to be reading from my story, Defeated, by Janelle Taylor. And it's by me, Brittany Birch. It was 2003. Justin Timberlake had just come out with Cry Me a River, and my parents had been arguing for weeks about the money that they did not have to pay the bills. So me, being a noble, humbling idiot, I told my parents I wanted out of private school. Well, they listened to my business model, tracked our spending habits, and agreed that it would be the best financial move to take me out of private school. Lo and behold, we will soon see that I was nowhere ready for the dangers and frights of callous public school kids. My dad, being my heroic Jamaican Superman, decided to send me to Pierre Laporte, the best school in Toronto, because your sister went there in the 80s, and if it's good back then, it's good now. Well, my first few weeks were more like, if you could just take me back to the sketchy looking warehouse camp on Oakdale Road, I think I would be safer there with the one rat and the two kids. But before I continue my tale, I must say, this story is not meant to enforce any stigmas or stereotypes about kids from low-income neighborhoods, or middle school kids in general. This is an authentic experience that I'm choosing to share with you about a middle school defeat with a somewhat twisted ending. Now, back to our regular programming. How I survived middle school in the hood.
Hi, my name is George. This is from a short story called Ramble. Bill, with inspiration from his schizophrenic, psychotic, manic depressive, quasi-suicidal, borderline, and narcissistic colleagues, conceived a 4-part diagram to measure material success for himself in the workplace. This model for success was not an actual drawn illustration, but he imagined a 4-prong icon defining achievement as a working man. This schemata was virtual, yet operated in real time. He could taste it and feel it. It existed in the world. The more he studied it, the more it fascinated him. Each part of it, indeed all of it, had a beautiful simplicity to it. The first arm or prong in the chartered version he held up as a model of success involved getting a job, a good one, with benefits. The second attachment to this abstract conception required the sustained possession of an apartment. Rental, of course. Purchasing real estate was rather out of the question. The third necessary gain or part on his blueprint for success was the outright ownership of a car. The fourth needed adjunct to the schema was a partner, hopefully with benefits as well. Standing up and stretching, Bill took a few deep breaths. As he began to pace about the lounge, he remembered a polar bear he had seen doing much the same back and forth march in its cage at the old city zoo. Identification with the bear had always been easy for Bill to make when he paced about the floors of the ward. Often he moved about in this manner when he felt trapped by circumstances beyond his control. When the zoo closed down, the bear was so stuck in its treading that it had to be put down when the time came for it to be moved from its enclosure. To be removed from its captivity and the constant walking from one end of its pen to the other would have been too traumatic for it. The consequences of pacing due to feeling bound by being locked up on an observation ward were shared. Others had fallen into the same groove of movement over the years. Trails had been worn into the carpeting and the stone floors by the restlessness of the patients who had been there before Bill.
I whispered to the boys something my mom often warned me about. Making loud noises and whistling makes the northern lights angry. And she'd say, "Make 'em angry enough and they'll carry you away to the other side." Jacob said, "My mom and dad told me it's the great ancestors communicating to us from the other side." Bursts of red streaked across the sky so bright the stars disappeared. Eric squeaked, "Whoa, what does red mean?" "Anger! Now shh!" We rolled our eyes at Eric. None of us dared whistle as we walked across the school playground to an open field where my neighbor's dog Coyote ran about. We called her that because she looked like a stout coyote. Her favorite pastime was chasing cars. I told Jacob and Eric, "Last week Albert Mustos' stepdad clocked Coyote at 40 miles an hour. She jumped and ran, zigzagging all over the field. Jacob asked, "She's probably chasing mice, eh?" Coyote made a giant loop, and our heads followed as she suddenly changed directions. Moments later, whipping past. "Man, she's fast," said Eric. We spread the blanket out for midnight tea under a starlit night. Coyote settled in with us, and I gave her jerky to chew while we scanned through the northern lights for flying saucers, or maybe a falling Russian satellite. We pondered the possibilities of it all. Well, as much as one could for a 10-year-old. Then Coyote's ears perked. She lifted her head and sniffed the cool air. She gave a low bass growl. I sensed something we didn't. Suddenly she stood and pointed her nose towards the forest, and Jacob pointed, "What's that?" We all saw a faint green glow move towards the tree line. Coyote gave chase. Her barking yelps stirred up all the dogs fenced in backyards across town. The sky surged energetically. We tried following Coyote, but quickly lost her in the bush. She even stopped barking. And then our flashlights died. But with the bright glow above, we did find a familiar trail. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone at the Humber Literary Review. Stay safe, take care, God bless.
Thank you again for joining us for this virtual launch online. Our magazine is going to be on our website. You can find it at humberliteraryreview.com. We're not sure when we're going to be sending out print issues. We're keeping up to date with all of the news about the pandemic and keeping safe. I just wanted to say this closing thank you that I hope owe a huge debt of gratitude to the collective, to these people that you've met and the ones that weren't able to be with us today. I miss seeing you folks in person so much, and I look forward to the day when I can see you all again. We'd also like to thank the contributors for making another marvelous issue, and keep encouraging folks to submit their work to us when our submission window opens up again, late summer, early fall. Take a look at this issue and all the writing in it at humberliteraryreview.com. We hope you enjoy reading it as much as we enjoyed putting it together. Thanks so much, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.